What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Saturday, March 20th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 4-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I like Jrue Holiday from the Milwaukee Bucks playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Jrue Holiday has averaged 33.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He scored 40, 25, and 38 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 40, 32, and 32 minutes. He's projected at 33.2 fantasy points here tonight, and that's just about 5 times value. He's $6,700 FanDuel salary and $200 less on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, but I especially like that price on DraftKings, where it's hard to find players that are priced less on DraftKings than they are on FanDuel. And Jrue Holiday has scored 19, 26, 28, 44, and 43 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Spurs. So I like Jrue Holiday here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Another point guard that I like is Ben Simmons from the Philadelphia 76ers playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Ben Simmons has averaged 40.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He scored 48, 39, and 32 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 45, 33, and 26 minutes. He's projected at 41.2 fantasy points here tonight. I think he can get you 45 fantasy points or more and get you 5 times value or more. He's $8,500 FanDuel salary and $600 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 234.5 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup, so I like Ben Simmons here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, now if you're looking for a high-risk, high-reward value play, take a look at Pat Connaughton from the Milwaukee Bucks playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Pat Connaughton has averaged 16.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 22 minutes per game with an 11% usage rate. He scored 28, 2, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 34, 29, and 26 minutes. He's projected at 19.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's $4,000 FanDuel salary and $200 more on DraftKings. So I like that he played 34 minutes last game. His minutes in the last 3 games are all above his season average, but you can see this guy has a super low floor, so he can totally destroy your lineup, but he's got that 25 to 30 fantasy point upside, and he's been playing pretty well the past 5 games. With the exception of the 2 and the 8, he scored 28, 22, and 31. So he's a coin flip player. He's either going to make or break you, but I like Pat Connaughton as a high-risk, high-reward play here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Okay guys, it's time to announce the winner of our $100 weekly comment contest. And the winner is Curtis Scott. Congratulations. Curtis Scott, you are the winner of this week's $100 PayPal giveaway. Please reply to our comment to collect your prize. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Andrew Wiggins from the Golden State Warriors playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the third most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Andrew Wiggins has averaged 30.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. He scored 66, 29, and 24 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 34, 27, and 27 minutes. So without Steph Curry on the floor, last night he had a 37% usage rate. So he's projected at 29.8 fantasy points here tonight. I expect him to get over 30 fantasy points, especially if he can get a 30+% usage rate, which would be way over 5 times value, close to 6 times value or more on FanDuel, and over 5 times value on DraftKings. He's $5,200 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,100 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. He scored 66, 22, 42, 47, and 27 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Grizzlies. I think he makes a nice play with Stephen Curry still out, so I like Andrew Wiggins here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, another shooting guard that I like, I'm going to give you a value play here. I like Damien Lee from the Golden State Warriors playing the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Damien Lee, he's averaged 14.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 19 minutes per game with a 13% usage rate. But without Steph Curry on the floor, last night he scored 35 fantasy points in 27 minutes with a 25% usage rate. So he's only $3,500 FanDuel salary and $100 less on DraftKings. I think he's worth another shot here tonight considering his salary is still super low. He hasn't been priced up compared to Andrew Wiggins on DraftKings or Draymond Green on DraftKings. Both of those guys got priced up, but they're still all great plays on FanDuel. And Damien Lee is only $3,400 DraftKings salary. So I think he makes a nice value play here. So I like Damien Lee here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I'm going to give you another value play here. I like Nicholas Batum from the LA Clippers playing the Charlotte Hornets, who have the 3rd worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing small forwards, Nicholas Batum has averaged 21.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 12% usage rate. He scored 13, 22, and 17 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 29, 25, and 19 minutes. So he's been playing plenty of minutes. He's the type of player that's going to get you 10 to 25 fantasy points, but his salary's low enough where I don't think he's going to crush your lineup if he only scores, say, 15 fantasy points. He's projected at 19.9 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.5 times value. He's only $3,600 FanDuel salary, and he's $300 more on DraftKings. Now, I like this pick because Vegas thinks there's going to be 231 points scored in this game, so you got a high-scoring game, lots of fantasy points to go around. So I like Nicholas Batum here versus the Charlotte Hornets. The other small forward that I like is Harrison Barnes from the Sacramento Kings playing the Philadelphia 76ers, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing small forwards, but Harrison Barnes has averaged 30.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 36 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He scored 33, 38, and 25 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 38, 35, and 36 minutes. He's projected at 31 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $5,900 FanDuel salary, and he's $500 more on DraftKings. So he scored 27, 29, 37, and 27 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the 76ers. And Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 234.5 points scored in this game. So another good game to stack or at least grab some exposure to. So I like Harrison Barnes here versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I have 2 value plays for you here. The first one is Marcus Morris from the LA Clippers playing the Charlotte Hornets, who have the 3rd worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Marcus Morris has averaged 19.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 25 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He scored 28, 28, and 4 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 36, 30, and 19 minutes. So his minutes per game are up quite a bit in the last 2 games, and he's had good production. He's projected at 20.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.6 times value. He's only $3,700 FanDuel salary, but he's $1,100 more on DraftKings. So I like that FanDuel price. Another reason I like this pick is because he scored 28, 25, 37, 27, and 21 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Hornets. Plus, Vegas thinks there's going to be 231 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup. He's playing a bunch of minutes. He's been productive. So I think his price is way too low on FanDuel. Probably priced about right on DraftKings, but I much prefer that FanDuel price. So I like Marcus Morris here versus the Charlotte Hornets. Okay, another value play for you here. This guy just came back. I like PJ Tucker from the Milwaukee Bucks playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing power forwards. PJ Tucker, he's averaged 15.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with an 8% usage rate. He's projected at 20 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's only $3,700 FanDuel salary, and he's $400 more on DraftKings. So PJ Tucker, he's always a risky player. He plays a bunch of minutes, but he always struggles to score fantasy points. But I think he can score near 20 fantasy points here tonight and at least get you 5 times value or more. So I like PJ Tucker here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Ivica Zubac from the LA Clippers playing the Charlotte Hornets, who have the 3rd worst defense overall, and they give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Zubac has scored 21 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 20 minutes per game with a 15% usage rate. But take a look at his last 2 games. He scored 35 and 31 fantasy points, playing 35 and 34 minutes. So his minutes per game are way up from his season average. He's projected at 23.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $4,500 FanDuel salary and $600 more on DraftKings. So I like Ivica Zubac here versus the Charlotte Hornets. Another center that I like is Rashawn Holmes from the Sacramento Kings playing the Philadelphia 76ers, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing centers. And Rashawn Holmes has averaged 32.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He scored 56, 32, and 61 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 32, 26, and 40 minutes. He's projected at 34.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value. He's $7,100 FanDuel salary and $200 more on DraftKings. So he's been playing really well lately. I think his price is good on both sites, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 234.5 points scored in this game. So I like Rashawn Holmes here versus the Philadelphia 76ers. If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.